maximizing innovation agility by building your SaaS solution on AWS. My name is Craig Wicks. I'm a senior manager with a program newly launched called AWS SAS Factory. I'm joined by Emily Tyak in the partner organization. We represent a small group at AWS, or a rather large group that's really passionate about SaaS and helping companies build SaaS solutions on AWS. What we want to do today is really provide some best practice, some patterns we see in market, highlight some examples of partners we see really doing some good things, and also highlight programs and resources that you can take advantage of. So really here today to learn. I imagine some of you are on some path towards building a SaaS solution, either planning, implementing, perhaps getting ready to launch, perhaps at AWS at the reInvent. Congratulations if that's the case. But no matter where you're at in the spectrum, you're welcome here. No judgment, nothing like that. I've talked to organizations over the last year, and they're in all sort of places on this road. We launched a program just this last year called SAS Factory, and the idea was to bring a lot of our SaaS expertise and resources to one place to make it really sort of a place that customers and partners could access very easily, and also put our expertise there so we could continue to learn. And what we're bringing in this presentation is really some best practices we've heard and really a reflection of what we're hearing in the market. So really from working with some of the top ISVs and some that are building SaaS solutions currently. So just to get to the agenda, first I just want to set context on SaaS. I think it can still be a really confusing term and provide some level of definition. I want to start with the customer and look at the opportunity, certainly what we're seeing from a market perspective. You guys have your own perspective of what you're seeing from your customers and the demand that's there. And then look at some common starting points and considerations for building SaaS solutions. And these are really some patterns we see that ISVs or those that are building SaaS solutions often take, and kind of go some trade-offs there. I want to talk about some partners that I've had a chance to work with this year, and also highlight some AWS services that I think can make a difference in terms of building your SaaS solution. We'll hear obviously a lot more services in the next few days, and it'll be interesting to see what we're coming out with next. And then Emily will sort of round out the presentation and talk about programs and resources you can take advantage of, and we'll have some key takeaways. And we'll hopefully have a little time at the end if folks have questions and they want to talk to us personally as well too. So with that, what are we talking about? It's funny that you have to sort of talk about SaaS and still define the term. It feels like this term's been around for about 20 years, and I think that's about right. But we really define it as a centralized way to manage software that's available on a subscription or pay-per-use basis. Now there may be lots of deviations in terms of that term that's out there. Nobody's defining it and just putting regulations around it. IDC and Gartner seem to agree with that definition that it's had there. But I think what's important is really to understand how customers are looking at it. I did some research recently just to kind of look up the term and see what's out there. And there's lots of sort of branding around SaaS and more broadly around sort of cloud-enabled software and things. And I think for a customer, this could be tremendously confusing. I don't recommend doing a lot of research around the SaaS term out there. I ended up really confused. But the idea is really to focus on what SaaS means for your customers, right? And start with a customer. We have a saying at AWS and broadly at Amazon that we start with a customer and work backwards. I think most have seen or heard that in some way. So I want to focus some time kind of talking about that next in terms of what we see in the market. I think customer demand and preference is a really good place to start. And I want to highlight some recent research that IDC did. There's about 2,900 organizations worldwide. They asked IT and business leaders, hey, what's in your plans for SaaS? What are you guys up to? What are you doing? And they got a number of responses I thought were really interesting. The first one was all new applications are SaaS first, right? So if we've got a new application that's needed in our environment, we're going to focus on SaaS as a primary way to consume that application. We don't want to bring additional resources into the organization. So 21% had that response. The next one was 29% felt that there was really a company-wide initiative to migrate existing applications or functionality to a SaaS model, right? And this is we see this sort of across AWS as well too in terms of migration to the cloud. And then 22%, I thought this was really interesting, evaluating moving applications to SaaS when their software contracts renew. So either they're looking at that existing vendor that has that contract, or perhaps a whole new provider that's got the ability to deliver that same functionality or similar functionality in SaaS. And then there's some balance that were neutral, some that preferred traditional software applications, and 4% that rarely ever considered SaaS as an option. I don't have a lot of detail on who those folks were. It's interesting. But I think the key point from this slide is really there's 72% of, if you take that 22, 29, and 21 and add it up, and hopefully it equals 72. Somebody could do the math for me. Really strong consideration for SaaS, for new applications, for migration of existing applications and that functionality, and then also looking at sort of when the contracts renew and expire, what are we doing there? So really strong market demand. But what do customers expect with SaaS? I think this is a real key point and a confusing one for a lot of folks. And I invite you to ask your own customers what their expectations are. There's a few things we see common in a SaaS model in the market, a lot of variance across industries and things. But the first thing we see is really the expectation. Again, we're talking about customer expectations here, of a frictionless onboarding experience. Transforming was previously a maybe laborious and time-intensive experience of onboarding software to one that's rather frictionless. You can define what frictionless means in your own terms, but we see the most successful SaaS companies is really moving this from days to even minutes, right? And then using that to also transform sales and marketing, and I'll talk more about that in a second. The next one we see is around consumption-based pricing and a model there where you can pay by user, pay per usage, pay for some other dimension in your product that's there. Certainly AWS is setting a trend here for customers and an expectation there. Does your SaaS company have to be consumption-based pricing? No. We see a lot of examples out there that aren't, particularly enterprise-focused, large contracts, large deals. They may not want to pay for software by the byte, right? They want to sign a contract up front and get those terms that are there. But it's something that people have in their brain when they think about SaaS, is the ability to do that. The third point is around sort of innovation, right? Folks that are adopting SaaS expect that innovation level to keep coming at them with regular updates without sort of the traditional means of patching software or updating it, and to bring that innovation constantly. And we certainly see top ISVs and others that are building SaaS solutions to be really focused in this area. I think the one that may be the biggest driver that I see, particularly among IT organizations, is the ability to simplify IT management. I did some research last night, just over the last few days, looking at, hey, what's unemployment rate look like in the IT industry? As near as I can tell, it's next to zero, right? So you're not bringing a lot of new resources into your company, but you're thinking about how to redeploy those, right, to more innovation level tasks and ones that are driving the business. And no longer do folks want to be managing software and infrastructure. So those are a few expectations that customers see. There's certainly others that are out there. The next point I want to make is that SaaS can be a lot more than a product strategy. And I think that some that are down this road can definitely see this too. We certainly start working with engineering organizations and software development organizations in terms of helping them architect towards SaaS on AWS. But you quickly learn that it sort of transcends the business. And it becomes an entire business transformation. You're now running an operation, right? You're running a service to customers. So you've got a SLA, right? That's an agreement you have with those customers, and you've got to run that service 24/7. We often ask SaaS providers, like, who's going to answer the pager? And it's not going to be your customer's IT department. It's going to be you, right? So that's a completely different business. You also have the ability to really transform sales and marketing. If you've got the ability to onboard customers in a very frictionless environment, if you believe that characteristic around SaaS that I talked about earlier, you've got the ability to bring customers a very trial experience and get a lot of people using your software, and you define them to customers over time by bringing them through that trial experience. We see that there's a really transformative for SaaS. And then more broadly, in terms of business transformation, this becomes sort of more CEO level, board level, is things like the ability to look at the data and the customer usage become really important, right? You now have data available to you on what your customers are exactly doing with your service, and you can use that to inform the product strategy. You can inform customers in what they're doing. They may not know, and that becomes a service in its own right. So there's a real opportunity here to really transform the business. Another point I often make in this area too is you have the ability to really focus on customer usage and driving success to customers. And often you see a function in an organization now where it's just defined as customer success. And there's somebody that has a set of metrics that are focused on enabling those customers, right? You can start very small, right? sort of low floor, high ceiling, like bring customers in and use users just experiencing the software. You want to have a function or team that's very focused on their customer success. That's become a whole sort of paradigm shift, especially for SaaS companies that are out there. So what are some of the motivations for companies to start or perhaps go faster if you're on this road already? One I would say is certainly customer demand. I highlighted the IDC data earlier. What are you seeing from your own customers? What are they demanding related to SaaS? A lot of people come to SaaS because there's customer requests to do so, and we see that consistent in the market. We also see many ISVs really value the time to market. So if they can accelerate the innovation and bring products to market faster, more consistently, that becomes very attractive to their business, particularly attracting new customers. Competitive pressure, either from existing competitors or perhaps the competitors you don't know about today that are emerging, right? That becomes a key motivator. And lastly, it's about survival. This may seem drastic, but we did a survey a few years ago, and even for companies that were moving to SaaS that saw no economic advantage, no profit or margin advantage, they stated it was about their survival. They were not going to be in business unless they made this transformation. Not trying to scare anyone, but I think we all know of software companies out there that haven't made sort of a transformation or leap, whether it's SaaS or previous paradigms that are out there. So where to start? My first point here is SaaS is very much a long game. It's a long-term strategy, product or business strategy that you're on. And I wanted to walk through 4 patterns that we see in market, right, from SaaS companies. And this is just really a reflection of our engagement and our experience. And I wanted to talk about some trade-offs with each. And you may identify yourself in one of these patterns, and perhaps not. But I thought they were really indicative of what we've seen happening in the market. So the first one may be a bit odd. Why am I talking about managed services in a SaaS session? And by the way, all these slides have this kind of conceptual core app concept. So bear with me for the architects in the room. This may not be completely accurate. But we often see companies that initially come to us and talk about a SaaS offering is actually what they have is a managed service offering, where they were pulled into offering a managed service by customer demand. Often it's a sales request. And they're checking the operations team. Hey, can we do this? Can we offer this? Love your software, don't want to manage it. Can you guys take care of this? And that's either hosted by you in your own data center, or third-party hosting as well too, in terms of managed service. I think it's a very viable business. Obviously, there's many managed service providers that are supporting our business on AWS that you can learn about sort of in sessions. I think even tomorrow there's one. But we see it as a hard place to start building a SaaS offering from. You perhaps have a single instance with some customization for each customer. You have an operations team that's up and running, but there's a lot of challenges in growing and innovating that business over time. And it becomes a challenge to scale. But certainly a business in its own right, just a hard place to start from a SaaS perspective. So the next one is around a new Greenfield application. I think when people think about SaaS, and this is where they often think about sort of how it is and sort of, oops, let me go back one. Sorry, guys. But either this is a new company, startup, a spinoff. Perhaps it's even within a larger organization where you're developing a new company altogether, and you really got the opportunity to get it right. Right? You can follow the customer, you can sort of meet their expectations, you can drive sort of that pricing model that you like, the pay for use. And here we see there's really a balance in terms of time to market and functionality. And I'm sure everybody's heard of an MVP concept, but what's the minimum viable product to get to market, right? It's not going to perhaps delight customers, but it's going to serve the need, right? A lot of companies that we've engaged with, even successful SaaS ISVs that we talk about at AWS, their initial product offerings were pretty modest, right? And so it's really about getting that application in market and running that operation as a business and learning from that and then iterating, right? And not getting it perfect the first time. So next one is around kind of a new application to new customers. And this is one we see quite frequently, where you have an existing core set of functionality, and now you've got the opportunity. Little music there, yeah. Interlude. You've got a core application. and you develop a new application based on that to serve a new customer set. We often see this where perhaps you're enterprise focused and you now have the ability to go down market, go to small and medium business, and it was previously maybe a segment that was really difficult to serve or costly to serve, right? I like this approach a lot. I think it's got a lot of things to like about leveraging your brand. There's some built-in demand there already. You can lower your operational costs, certainly. But it may have a really high customer acquisition cost. I don't know if many have done much research around customer acquisition cost, but studies I've seen show it can be up to $1.50 to get a new customer with $1 revenue. So you're looking at sort of a long time to recoup that initial acquisition cost, whereas you're going after new customers, it can be like 25 cents to recoup that $1 revenue. So that's certainly a downside of this model. The next one is around a new app to current customers. So you're finding a way to better serve or complement what they have already, what they love about your software. This is one we see often in areas like analytics or reporting, where you're adding complementary services on top of a core offering and adding additional value. So I think this is a really successful model in a couple of ways. One, you're getting a SaaS operation up and running, serving existing customers, you're learning from it. So you don't have as high a cost of sale, right? Your sales and marketing teams are used to talking and reaching those customers already, right? Just grabbing more share of wallet. The downside may be some limited return. What I really see as the upside is you have a SaaS business up and running and learning from it. That's one of the biggest things that's out there. When I talk to companies that are launching SaaS solutions that are 3 or 4 years out until some launch, wow, that's a long time before you're up and running on that business. And things can change dramatically in 3 or 4 years, as we all know, right? Why not get that product offering up in market, kind of slice it down, componentize what you have, and to find a way to deliver quickly, right? And then learn from it and iterate. And I think that's an approach we see that is more successful. So my point is here is like there may be some risk and reward to these options. So I just highlighted a few here that I think are key in SaaS, and you may have your own. But driving innovation, we've talked about time to market, sort of the opportunity to lower operational cost and acquire new customers. These are 4 that I picked. You may pick 4 that are important to your business as well too. And start to look at how these models may lay out. The bubbles will move here, guys. Follow the dancing bubbles. But the idea is really there's some trade-offs or tensions here, right? If you look at the managed services example, the one I hit initially, you may have a real time to market advantage, but you're not necessarily lowering your operating cost or driving innovation to customers. On the other side, on the far left-hand side, bringing a new app to new customers may really sort of drive that innovation, that pace you have, and lower operating costs, but you're not acquiring new customers, and the time to market may be limited. So this framework, I think, is useful. Often we start with organizations and we ask them, hey, what are your motivations to go to SaaS? And you'd be surprised at how many don't have these business objectives really laid out. And also some of the decisions you make, particularly on the managed services example I picked up initially, may have long-term impacts in terms of what you could do from a product perspective going forward. So hopefully this framework is useful for you folks to kind of look at. But certainly it's not every model we see out there, but it's one I think we see most often. So I want to transition and talk about what we see from partners in market, and particularly the ones that I've had a chance to engage with over the last year. This is a comment from Bruno from Sumo Logic, machine data analytics, really built on AWS. And he talks about the ability to be agile by not having to manage that infrastructure stack in their own data center and giving that to AWS. And that's really the theme here. I think if we can take away some of the undifferentiated heavy lifting, as Andy Jassy talks about it, right? The things that are not core to your business and handle those within our platform, that's the burden that we want to take and we'll take readily. But the first example is probably a company that most haven't heard from, called Wirewheel. So if you've had to deal with GDPR or CCPA or other concerns around privacy in the last year, Wirewheel was a company that really provides a platform that helps you support that within your own organization. I think what's really fantastic here is Wirewheel launched the company 18 months, right? Built a SaaS solution on AWS. Early customers include Under Armour and Blackboard. So really accelerated into market, really built on top of AWS services. And one of the key things I think that's really interesting about Wirewheel and what they're doing is they really had a challenge in building credibility with new customers, right? And they leveraged the AWS brand to do that. Some of the programs and resources that Emily will talk about next. But it's a company that just launched funding and just really launched into market within the last few months. The next one I want to talk about is a company that's a little bit older. I think Dell Boomi's been around now for about 11 years, but they provide integration PaaS platform to let you connect data and applications. And they moved their entire platform to AWS just within the last year. And the key theme here was they really wanted to take advantage of AWS services around elasticity and storage to kind of scale that business further. And they will continue to innovate and drive that on AWS. So those are a couple examples. We have other on our website, things that are out there too. I love this quote. This is somebody I had a chance to work with this year, Keith Cerny from ACL. He's basically make a point that if you're a SaaS provider, treat AWS like an R&D team, right? And look at, see what they have and what they're coming, and do not build, replicate what we're doing. And that's how he has really built his business, right? He's looking for things that we're doing, consuming those, and then having his team focus on really the core value in the organization. And he said it so much more succinctly than I could have, I think, for sure. So I wanted to go through a few examples here of services that I think really make a difference for SaaS providers. The first one is AWS Private Link, launched just 1 year ago. And it really allows customers to access your service through private endpoints within AWS. So if you've got customers in highly regulated environments, or there's data or privacy concerns over sending information over the public internet, Private Link allows you to sort of take advantage of sort of that private endpoint within our service. So in one example here, we've got Snowflake and Dynatrace. But in the Snowflake example, they were able to use this service with 20 new customers just in the last year. So they're already really taking advantage of this to reach new customers. There. The second one is one that's been around for some time, SaaS on Amazon Aurora, or Amazon Aurora, I'm sorry. So really an enterprise class database. If you're a SaaS provider that's thinking about the underlying database infrastructure that's there, perhaps you already have some licensing costs that you want to avoid, or perhaps you're looking for a way to take the burden of managing that service away. And Amazon Aurora is a fully managed database service that's there, and really freeing up the technical staff to focus on other work that's there. You're paying only for what you use. A number of SaaS providers we highlight here, Autodesk, Infor, Intuit, Workday, Pega, are all taking advantage of Amazon Aurora. Intuit is running their entire commerce platform. If you know Intuit, QuickBooks, TurboTax. I don't want to think about taxes yet, but they certainly handle that for a lot of customers, and they're running their entire commerce platform on AWS. So I think just related to services, I think a key point here is really keeping your ears open the next few days, listening for other services that you'll take advantage of. I don't have anything to share or announce today, but Andy will on Wednesday, and there'll be other announcements to follow, just to see how that you could incorporate that in your own SaaS business, right? To save cost, improve time to market. So at this point, I want to transition to Emily, who's going to talk more about programs and resources, and take it home.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the programs and resources that we have available to help, execute and drive what Craig was just talking about. So we have a number of programs within the APN across partners' entire life cycle of building SaaS on AWS. So we're going to focus a lot of time today talking about programs and resources in the kind of build phase, but we'll also touch on programs in our market and going to market to customers, as well as selling to customers through innovative channels like the AWS Marketplace and working jointly with AWS sellers. So to start, like I mentioned, we're going to go kind of deep on the build piece, right? And by build, I mean not just new applications. It covers greenfield applications like Craig was talking about, as well as kind of optimizing existing applications, innovating on existing applications, leveraging new services, trying to lower costs, building new features in an existing product, right? So all that kind of falls under this build piece here. So we'll start with partner solutions architects, right? They're kind of the foundation of everything we do within the partner network, right? And these partner solutions architects have deep knowledge and experience building products on AWS. So as APN partners, you guys have access to personalized support from these partner solutions architects, opportunities to interact with them one-on-one or through engagement opportunities like webinars or in-person events. And they also are very deep in developing technical content and collateral, right? So whether that's reference architectures, white papers, blog posts, but reacting to what we're hearing from our partners and then building that out into best practices that then everybody can use. And you can kind of look at these partner solutions architects as your guide to innovation and guide to kind of navigating AWS services and how to leverage that to drive your business forward. And the next piece here kind of piggybacks off of what Craig was talking around Amazon Aurora. So through the AWS Database Ready program, if you're one of those companies who's currently using legacy commercial database and you're looking to get away from some of those licensing costs and leverage Amazon Aurora or RDS, the AWS Database Ready program provides technical and business resources to help you modernize your application and leverage Amazon Aurora and RDS, both in helping to build, and also they have some go-to-market components as well. So I encourage you to check that out. And kind of going along the sort of theme of building foundation, AWS Training and Certifications. This is probably not news to anybody in the room, right? But I like to hammer it home every time we talk about the build piece, because it's the core way of making sure that your company has the right knowledge and skills to build well-architected products on AWS. And so there's over 150 free digital training courses online you can leverage, enabling you and folks at your company to learn at your own pace, as well as classroom trainings led by accredited AWS instructors. And as APN partners, you guys are eligible for 20% off AWS-delivered public training classes. And then building on that, validating technical skills and expertise with an industry-recognized credential through AWS certifications, right, after those trainings. And kind of extending beyond that, beyond the foundation, into building a specialized and differentiated product on AWS, I want to touch on the AWS Navigate program briefly. So the AWS Navigate program provides learning resources and tools to become specialists in a solution, industry, workload, or service areas through specialized training. And this is a program that was launched earlier this year as a way to kind of provide guidance and the course to really get specialized training in specific solution, industry, workload, or service areas. And beyond that, they also have great resources around building your partnership with AWS. So they have marketing and technical collateral to learn about those best practices. And I'll touch on this a little bit later as well, but one of the core kind of components is building our joint customer success story. And through AWS Navigate, there's access to templates and other resources to help kind of build out some of that. So through case study templates, customer references, and templates around building an AWS microsite, and among many other things. So we're going to go deep in the AWS SAS Factory, which is what Craig was mentioning. It's a program that we launched reInvent last year. And it's really built, the foundation is our SaaS experts, right? So we have SaaS experts in our Partner Solutions Architects org who are focusing on architecture and technical components. And then we also have business experts that are helping to build out some of those business components and best practices in that area. And through the AWS SAS Factory, it includes a range of learning opportunities from self-service education, in-person events, as well as workshops, and I'll kind of touch on all the different resources we have available there. One of the great things about this program is it's available to any partner at any APN tier, right? We want to make this as accessible as possible, all of these best practices and resources. So hundreds of AWS partners have leveraged the SAS Factory this year alone. That includes industry leaders such as F5, Trend Micro, Dell Boomi, Illumina, and startups like Wirewheel that Craig touched on. So he mentioned that the amazing growth that Wirewheel has seen from inception to launch in 18 months. And SAS Factory is one of the programs that they leveraged along the way, right? So they leveraged the SAS Factory to launch their SaaS offering to market, including an offering on AWS Marketplace. So I want to talk a little bit about the different resources we have available through SAS Factory. So one of the areas that we've seen a lot of traction and great outcomes from is our learning modules. So we've built sort of specialized trainings focusing on SaaS elements. We have 4 modules live right now covering kind of SaaS best practices, a 101 course, down to specific topics around multi-tenant data partitioning, right, among a couple others. So this is an area we're going to be focusing on heavily in 2019. So we have over 15 learning modules planned next year in both technical and business topics. So this is something that I encourage your team to check out, technical as well as on the business side. A little bit more interactive, we have a monthly webinar series where we tackle specific topics, questions we have, new services. So for example, earlier this year, we did a specific webinar around Private Link, walking through how that benefits SaaS ISVs and how it's relevant to them. It's a great way to have an interactive experience with SaaS experts that are leading these webinars. So even more interactive, we also have in-person workshops, right? So I want to touch on a couple of these here. Earlier this year, our SaaS experts built an interactive SaaS bootcamp that guides participants through an end-to-end experience of building a SaaS application on AWS. There's multiple opportunities to engage in that experience here at AWS, so I encourage you to check that out, have your technical teams check that out. It's a great way to get your hands dirty and have experts in the room who are ready to answer questions contextually as you're coming up with them. We also, as an example of a business topic here, earlier this year we ran a 4-hour launch experience that traces critical aspects of a SaaS product launch and reviews core principles that are fundamental to building and launching a SaaS business on AWS, including customer targeting, persona development, packaging, and development of a launch plan. And we're looking forward to expanding those in 2019 as well globally. And finally, our SaaS experts contribute to a SAS Factory blog post series where we address commonly asked questions, new services, trends they're seeing. And one area that we're going to be expanding next year is using this as a forum to share successes across our SaaS community, right? Enable our SaaS ISVs who we're working with to share their successes and enable these companies to learn from each other. So I'll jump into how we support ISVs, SaaS ISVs going to market through differentiating their products and then also through driving joint go-to-market campaigns. So I want to highlight just on 3 kind of guiding principles around joint go-to-market with AWS. So the first one, Craig mentioned this. This is not the first time you've heard this, I'm sure, but we're customer obsessed, right? So all of our go-to-market campaigns are oriented around use cases and business value that is, drives to the customer. Another piece, we really focus on partner-led campaigns with AWS support, right? So we want to work with you to figure out how can AWS support you in your go-to-market priorities, and how does AWS add value to your customers? And then finally, data-driven, right? I'm sure we share this among everybody in the room, right? We want to make sure that what we're working on is, we're driving value, we have clear metrics, and that we're managing and tracking leads and opportunities. And the first tactic I want to highlight, launched earlier this year, is the AWS solution space. So this provides customers with customer-ready solutions that are scalable and secure and empower them to achieve their business needs with AWS and APN partners that have obtained a competency. So I'll get into the competency program here in a minute. So we really worked from the customer backward to identify what are the most in-demand solutions, and then worked with APN partners with a competency to build out those solutions on AWS and build it into a whole package, a customer-ready package that a customer can leverage immediately. So what we do around these solutions is we really drive, we promote these solutions to customers, we promote them to the AWS sales organization, and we drive partner marketing campaigns around these customer-ready solutions through AWS Solution Space. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper on two programs here, the AWS Competency Program, as well as APN Marketing Central. So the first here, the AWS Competency Program. So AWS competencies are granted to APN partners who have demonstrated technical proficiency and proven customer success in specialized solution areas. So what I mean by demonstrated technical proficiency and customer success is we, through the process of obtaining a competency, we review the product architecture together, as well as customer references around customers who have successfully leveraged and used that product to drive their business outcomes. And like I was mentioning before, we're really orienting around use cases and business outcomes. So we align towards the AWS competency and AWS competency partners to drive that, right? So one of the things that's really helpful from the AWS competency, obtaining it is a great step to unlock additional go-to-market benefits. So some of these benefits include preferred access to market development funds to execute on these joint marketing campaigns, spotlight on APN blogs, and eligibility for joint customer webinars and campaigns. So there's 21 AWS competencies available for partners right now. 2 launched just in September, industrial software and cloud management tools. And then finally, within this marketing segment, I want to just touch briefly on a tool and a resource we have called APN Marketing Central. And this is an easy self-service tool that gives you quick and easy access to marketing support and marketing activities that enable you to generate demand for your solution on AWS. So you can customize and launch solution-based campaigns, find an agency with experience messaging on AWS to extend your marketing team, and use that to drive demand for your solutions on AWS. So just an example of some of the resources on APN Marketing Central. So landing page templates, solution brief templates, like I mentioned, access to agencies, as well as virtual partner marketing support that help you kind of navigate this experience and help point you towards the right resources and how to best leverage the APN Marketing Central. So I'll move into how we help partners sell, right? So we have millions of customers, active customers using AWS every month in every single different industry or segment that you can imagine, right? And we have a number of different programs to help collaborate and sell to those millions of active customers. So I'm going to touch on 2 specifically here. So AWS Marketplace, as well as the AWS Customer Engagement Program, which is a program launched earlier this year that's really targeted at how to jointly work with our AWS sales organization. So the AWS Marketplace is a sales channel that makes it easy for APN partners to offer software solutions that run on AWS. And the channel really is targeting AWS customers. There's currently over 190,000 active customers who are using products that they purchase through AWS Marketplace, and over 500 SaaS products are listed on AWS Marketplace. So the great thing for customers is it simplifies the procurement process and the purchasing process for the customer. So buyers can easily find and subscribe to SaaS products in Marketplace, and they're charged for the product all on their AWS bill, right? So it consolidates that billing and simplifies that procurement process, all going through AWS. And for sellers, so for partners, it also provides flexibility in how you list your product on AWS Marketplace. So there's 3 different ways that sellers can list their product on Marketplace. The first is pay-as-you-go subscriptions, where buyers can pay as they go based on consumption. And this kind of mirrors what Craig was talking about, right? Where this is a traditional view of SaaS, but it's not the only view of selling and purchasing SaaS products. So along those lines, they also offer prepaid subscriptions or contracts where customers pay in advance for a certain amount of usage. So for example, monthly or 1 or 2 a year or subscriptions. And then finally, they also have seller private offers. So this is more in the enterprise space, but it's a purchasing program that allows an AWS Marketplace customer and a Marketplace seller to negotiate a custom pricing and an end user licensing agreement terms for a software purchase. And a partner that I want to highlight here who has successfully leveraged AWS Marketplace in their overall channel strategy is CloudAbility. So CloudAbility's true cost management platform delivers accurate cloud financials, empowering companies to run their cloud with financial and operational excellence. And they've helped thousands of customers manage over $7 billion in AWS spend. And CloudAbility has listed a SaaS contract product on AWS Marketplace, which they also use to facilitate private offers for their customers. And they found a lot of success working through Marketplace. And finally, here within the sales section, I want to talk a little bit about working with the sales organization. So a lot of mutual benefits to jointly working together at our mutual customers, right? The first one I want to highlight, again, customer obsessed, right? So by working together on these opportunities, it provides our AWS account managers visibility into the successful business outcomes that you're driving with our mutual customers, right? It gives you a chance to evangelize what you're doing at our customers to our AWS account managers. It also enables us to mutually identify new account opportunities and open up new relationships at existing customers, and overcome customer challenges to accelerate adoption and sales cycle. So the APN Customer Engagement Program, formally launched this year, is the foundation and the backbone of facilitating these mutual engagements, right? So through the APN Customer Engagement Program, and its tools to jointly manage these opportunities, technical resources, as well as sales support for qualified opportunities. So piggybacking a little bit on that, so the tools and processes to manage your pipeline of customers on AWS. So we have an opportunity management portal where make it easy for you guys to share your opportunities with AWS. That gives us visibility, our account managers visibility into the opportunities you're working on, and provides that foundation to start working jointly together on those opportunities. Like I was mentioning, accelerating these deals in the sales cycle, evangelizing your existing AWS business. And then additionally, partners that meet certain qualifications are eligible to receive AWS lead referrals through the APN Customer Engagement Program into their opportunity management portal. So how to get started, like I mentioned, there are a few requirements, so I encourage you to go check that out. But the basis is start submitting those opportunities to help highlight your AWS business. And those opportunities can be leveraged towards your APN journey, right? One of the things I was mentioning, building joint customer successes is one of the foundations of building our partnership together. And so these opportunities that we're jointly managing and working on together is the foundation of building out those joint successes, right? So whether that's a case study, a customer reference, a blog post, right? There's so many things that we can build off of that. So I'll close out with just a few key takeaways from our conversation today. So the first one, evaluate your current strategy based on the risk and reward approach that Craig was outlining, right? Take a look at that framework. Maybe you want to tweak some of it, right, to better fit your business's needs, but take a look at that and see if there's ways you can incorporate that in your business. Additionally, building off of what Craig said, really drive innovation. Keep your ears out for what's going on with AWS services this week and figure out ways to incorporate that. Sign up for our AWS webinars so you can learn about how those new services that are being launched can impact your business from a SaaS context, right? Sign up for the SaaS on AWS interest list. That's the way that we follow up with new events that are out, new opportunities that are launching to engage with our SaaS experts. And take a look at some of the resources available through the SAS Factory. And we encourage you to take a look at the AWS Competency Program to see if it fits your business needs to drive differentiation in market to customers. And consider the AWS Marketplace as a channel to reach customers. So the Marketplace team has a Marketplace experience outside in the ARIA Quad. So if you have questions or you want to learn more about that, I encourage you to go there and check it out and talk to some of the AWS Marketplace experts. And then finally, start submitting opportunities through the APN Opportunity Management Portal so we can start building those joint success together. So So it's a big reInvent here for the SaaS team. We have 18 sessions around SaaS on AWS. Most of them are technical, right? This is just a sample of them. But I encourage you to go in there and check them out and take a look if any of them might fit you or your company's needs. And then we also have office hours, right? So we'll be at the APN desk right outside the AWS Village in the Expo Hall the next 3 days. So we encourage you to come, find us, talk to us. If you have questions about the presentation or want to talk to us about a specific opportunity and get our thoughts or share what you're working on, we'd love to talk to you. So come check us out. And with that, thank you guys so much for participating. We will be here for the next 15 or so minutes, hanging out in the corner. Feel free to come by. We have stickers and all sorts of fun stuff. So come by and say hi.